next. As we have mentioned on more than one occasion, a key moment perhaps in the future of London arrives at this time. Mayor Boris Johnson has joined me in the studio, and I've a sense, Mr. Mayor, that you're about to prove that you are a man of your word. I wonder if I'm correct. You gave me a promise some months ago.
I gave you a promise. I said that I would come on your show and that your listeners would be the first to know from my lips that it is my intention, and indeed I have written, to seek nomination to serve as mayor for another term. And that's, really because, as I said to you before, I'd make up my mind in the autumn of this year and look at all the things we've done, see how we're doing, take a view on whether things are going broadly well. And as you know, I've got very tough challenges on crime, improving the urban environment, getting value for others, all the things that we're working for. I do think it's been a good record so far, and I'm proud to defend it. And the thing is, Nick, when I look at the list of things that we've got to do, and I look at the Olympics, I look at all the prospects we've got to deliver change in London, to make something of the Olympic investments, not just for the site, but for the whole of East London, all the things that are in prospect. This is more than a two-year job. There are things that my team and I are working on.
Do you mean a two-term job, Mr. Mayor? You said a 2 year job.
Yeah, that's right. I've only got 2 years left. In this term, and we're going to need to keep going. There are transport projects we're going to need to greenlight to get up and running. All sorts of things that, frankly, are just obsessing me at the moment. And the reason I'm making this announcement to you and honouring our Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, I remember, honouring our pact is really just to knock it on the head. I mean, this should be a kind of,
Absolutely.
Pope lives in Vatican.
Let me start by saying you are a man of your word, and I appreciate it hugely. Here's a question that I know my listeners are thinking. Mr. Mayor, why did it take you so long to decide?
Why did it take me so long? Because I wanted to see whether we'd done something serious on crime, and I think we have. It's down overall 6%. On buses and on transport, it's down 30%. I mean, I've got a pledge to you, which is going to be very difficult to get it overall down by 20%. And that is going to be very, very hard. And I have to be fair to you and to the listeners about that. I think we've done fantastically well on housing. In spite of the recession, we are on course to deliver 50,000 affordable homes. We've done all sorts of things, and really, I'm very happy now with the team that we've got, because we're working very hard to improve London in all kinds of ways. And I was worried about the weather, for instance, whether the bike car scheme was going to work well.
Okay,
I'm now pretty confident that it is going to be valuable. I just want to knock all this speculation on the head. I want to be able to talk to government, so that they know absolutely, when I eyeball them, when I see George Osborne, when I see Dan, they know that it's my intention to be there.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I've talked to them. They know.
And their reaction?
I think it's broadly positive. What do you
mean by broadly positive?
You'd have to ask them, Nick, with your brilliant forensic, inquisitorial, journalistic skills. But I think they're broadly happy. I want to be able to talk to them in a frank way about what I think London needs, and they need to know from me, and I think people need to know that I'm determined to keep going with this job.
So does this mean your ambition to be Prime Minister is put on hold?
Listen, my ambition, all this, I'm more likely, I'm more likely to be decapitated by a frisbee or locked in a disused fridge, or whatever the normal metaphors I use are, than to accede to that office. We have a very, very good Prime Minister. My job now is to negotiate with him and with the Chancellor the best possible deal for London. And they've got to know that I'm doing that from a position of someone who is absolutely determined to keep fighting for London.
If the cycle hire scheme had a major wobble, and it's worth saying it hasn't, it's enjoyed a tremendous...
Well, you had a bit of a wobble.
I did have a wobble, but I did beat you round the square. I was quicker round the square. If it had had a wobble, would you maybe have not?
Well, all these sorts of things, I was thinking about, and there was a certain amount of nail biting about the cycle hire scheme, and we've been very pleased with the success of it. But there's so many other things that I need to get done. Last night I was giving the Stephen Lawrence memorial lecture, and we were talking then about all the mentoring things we want to do, all the social changes we need to be pushing forward, getting people to understand that there is a huge problem in this city of kids who are growing up disadvantaged, without enough diversionary activities of one kind or other. We need to help those kids, and there is if I had an anxiety if I had to, if I was going to reproach myself for things over the last 2 years. I would say that it's on that front. It's getting real help to kids who are vulnerable and finding ways to mobilise society and getting the voluntary sector going. I found that's been more difficult in a way than, getting the transport projects delivered, sorting out planting thousands of trees, banning alcohol, all that sort of things easy, but it's the social changes that are difficult.
You're in the papers today. Boris fury at cap on migrants. Boris Johnson attacked David Cameron's plan to cap the number of immigrants allowed into Britain. You've also said the coalition government is cutting spending in the wrong places. The freeze on advertising is stopping you promoting projects that getting young Londoners back to work. Are you in a big clash with the government?
Fury. All I'm saying is, let's be clear what's happened. In the last 10, 12 years, under the Labour government, how long they had in power, they completely lost control of immigration into this country. They hadn't had a clue who was coming in. They didn't have any way of monitoring it. They didn't know what was going on. They just let it rip. And that was a profound failure of government. The result is that there's been a political backlash against immigration of a very considerable sort, as you saw during the election campaign. That has led to very tough caps on immigration. And my point is a simple one, which is that these caps need to be very carefully thought through, because what you're doing at the moment, and talking to, top law firms, very, very, filmmakers, people in London who depend on talent coming here, they're finding it very difficult to get some of the brightest people through. And that's a mistake. We're cutting off our nose to spite our face if that is what's happening.
Let's talk more broadly about the spending cuts, the comprehensive spending review. How much is that an issue? Is that an issue going to be when you stand for re-election as London Mayor?
It's a huge issue. It's a huge issue for me. It engrosses a great deal of my time. And, the point I make time and time again to this government is, yes, you can cut waste. And yes, we have cut waste in London. And ever since we've been in for the last 2 years, we've been taking out hundreds and hundreds of supernumerary positions. We've been cutting £5 billion from the transport budget. But in the end, this is the motor of the UK economy. And it would be a disaster for this country, for the whole of the UK, if London was starved of fuel. And
does Mr. Cameron and Mr. Osborne, do they listen to this? Do they understand?
I think they are getting the message. And, I'd say that Philip Hammond, the Transport Secretary, certainly understands the importance of investment in transport infrastructure. But that is a case that you need to push on from a position of strength and coherence.
You're a very well read, very learned man.
Well,
give me a word. My pleasure. Give me a word to describe your relationship currently with Mr. Cameron and Mr. Osborne over this spending. Is it cordial? Is it confrontational? Is it challenging?
Look, it's frank. It's frank. I've got to. There are no secret. There's no pussyfooting, no mincing of words. We know where we are. This is a vital issue for the future of London. And if you cut a Crossrail, as some MPs are still urging, or if you slow down the tube upgrades, then you're really impeding the ability of this great city to compete with other global centres for years to come. You're also making a fundamental, I think, an economic mistake. Because if you look at what Obama is doing in America, and his plan, his $50 billion plan to put money into transport infrastructure, to get people working, I think that's basically a good idea, because you're going to generate now skills and jobs that will be of lasting benefit to the people, the human capital in this city.
Coming up to the election, a couple of years away, who would you rather take the Labour ticket, Una King or Ken Livingstone?
This is I prefer to levitate above this subject with sort of like Buddha-like serenity. I mean, I don't want to appear complacent. I mean, they're both formidable people in different ways. I think this is a matter for the Labour Party, but I think
Ken Livingstone's given an interview, strangely, to one of the papers today, and he says that you didn't actually want to win the race to be mayor. You were surprised that you did win. You're a nice bloke, but basically you're lazy. That's what Ken Livingstone says.
Well, there you go. I think there's not a statement in that I can agree with. So I don't really know how to. I don't really. But there you go. He's a game old boy, isn't he? No doubt about it.
Will it be a rerun? Do you imagine? Do you think Ken Livingstone is more likely to edge it?
It's hard for me to say. I saw Una last night, actually, and she was on pretty sparkling form and getting a very, very warm reception. But, I just don't know. I don't know. I expect that they will go for Ken, that the Union block vote will row in behind the old war horse. I imagine that's what will happen.
And only got you for another minute or so. Let me ask you this. As people start to make up their mind in a couple of years' time, what would you want to point them towards? What would you want them to, what would you hang your hat on from this term as mayor?
I hope that we'll have delivered real changes in the lives of kids who are currently, having a hell of a time, and that some of our mentoring programs will have made a real difference, that will have brought down crime. And I hope that by 2012 it will be absolutely obvious that we have got the city ready for a most fantastic Olympic Games ever, and that not only that, but that we are going to keep driving change and improvement in London, harnessing all the investments that we've got. And I have a terrible feeling that the first couple of years of this mayoralty are going to be identified with bicycles, but I don't think that's going to be the last word on our mayoralty.
Must be a relief now, lastly, that not just me, but now everybody knows, because this has gone on for some time, Mr. Mayor. I was almost losing the power of strength.
You were losing the will to live.
Well, I couldn't even find the strength to ask you last time. Honestly, I started not to care. It's a relief now to tell the whole of London, isn't it?
But I think it's been probably... I hope it's been pretty obvious to people, but I didn't want to...
Why didn't you actually say it?
Because...
Come on, why did you pucker around like that?
No, because genuinely there were lots of things that I needed to consider, and I want you can't be considered. I wanted to be sure that I felt we had a good and defensible record, and I think we've got a great record now for the first 2 and a bit years. Some things have gone very well, some things have need to go better, but I'm confident that we'll be able to defend that in 18 months' time, wherever it is.
Mayor Johnson, you're a man of your word.
Thank you very much.
I'm very grateful. Thanks for coming on your programme. You heard it here first. Boris will run as the Conservative candidate and indeed as the sitting mayor. It's 9:17 to the Travel Desk. J. Louise Knight.